It's a really interesting label you have, and I mean, it's one of the things that I do talk to a lot of similar type of labels, similar types of business models, and so it's one of the things I'm excited to talk to you about today. Is that it's very unique, and I do want to dive into the charitable aspect side of things because that is something I'm starting to see a little bit more is labels wanting to operate as a registered charity. But I feel like for you, things go a lot deeper than that. So can you tell us, just give us a little introduction to your label and this unique approach that you have and this kind of special mission that it has?
Yeah, so Teaching Youth Records is a nonprofit record label that helps youth globally create and distribute music promoting social justice. And what we do is we incentivize them to write about issues that matter to all of us. So is it climate? Is it peace? Is it gun violence? Fill it in. So we just require that they write about social justice. And we pay 100% of the recording costs, whether it's a video or the song. They don't owe us anything. They retain 100% of their rights. And we do this through sort of a charitable model, meaning we like a patron art model, if you want to think of it like that, where we get donations and then that we fund the work such that we don't have to take any revenue or anything like that from the kids.
That's incredible. I'm curious, like, do you have like a history, like, do you have a background or of gatekeepers like preventing you from doing things or kind of dismissing you from being young? Like, where did this come from?
Well, so my origin story is I'm a trained professional drummer, and I got in a pretty bad car accident when I was 17. The doctor said, you're never going to play the drums again, and I decided I was going to become pro. I didn't know how I was going to do it. I couldn't play at all. The pain was, you couldn't imagine it. They had, I don't know if you can see, there's a big scar here, but they had this device sticking through my arm called an external fixator. I used to stick a drumstick through it, and I'd play. But, I was determined, right? Yeah. Just like, a lot of us have to be for survival. I found my way to a drum teacher called John Exapolius. I couldn't pronounce his name at the time, and he had a book called Lessons with the Greats. And had Steve Smith in there, one of my favorite drummers. He was the drummer in Journey. And I knew, oh man, this guy knew him. And so I started taking lessons with him, and it was tough, really tough. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I persevered. Ended up playing local gigs. I was doing a little jazz combo class at a college at San Mateo Community College. And the band director there recruited me to Stanford's jazz band, because at the time it was slated to be one of the best college big bands in the country. So he brought me and then a guitarist here that was here from France, studying abroad. And so we both ended up there. And so at the time, I guess I started getting better, started getting some opportunity. John finally connected me with Steve Smith. I started taking lessons with him. He really kicked my butt. And I was immersed in this world of just like, how do I get from this kind of nobody place, I don't even have any business doing this, to becoming like a world-class player? And that sort of set the foundation for me, having to overcome something early into then, great, like how many drummers want to do this for a living besides every one of them pretty much? And how can I be one of the few? And I did. And that kind of led me to give me the grit to start this and persevere over the last decade to really see it go to now it's this global thing. And we just released a powerful song and video today about gun violence that the White House will be sharing in some form.
Amazing. That's amazing. Were you a session player?
Yeah. So I did some of the SimCity stuff, like SimCity 3000 video games, mostly indie stuff, nothing real major, but international stuff. Yeah.
Well, the reason I ask is, I mean, you perhaps would be in a position, literally a back seat, to watch major labels working with a young artist and being kind of predator-ish. And did you see some things that made you think, boy, if I could run something like this, I would do it differently?
Yeah, well, actually, that origin story has to do when I taught a nonprofit rock camp for kids. And so maybe I should explain how I got involved in charity. Yeah. Because this sort of will connect that dot. So I taught this nonprofit rock camp. And so go back to about 2008 when the financial crisis hit. I had this amazing drum student named Peter Smith. And I say, Peter, you're going to go to this, to go to the rock camp. And he said, no, my dad can't afford it. Because at the time he had two daughters in college, and he was in the construction business and sort of got cleaned out. And I just thought that was wrong. And so I donated my pay. for that,
Wow.
for my time teaching. And that funded him on scholarship. I think at the time it was maybe about $1,500 for the week, room and board and all the
Sure.
education
Yeah.
stuff.
Wow.
And I had a feeling that I never felt before. And it cued me into something more powerful than myself and my ego, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so now the reticular activating system goes off. I start seeing opportunities to be charitable because I just love how that felt. And I really felt deeply connected to it. And so a year later, working with a band, and they said, hey, there's no opportunities for us. We don't know how we're going to. They wrote their own songs. They just felt like, how do we crack this thing called the music industry, the record labels and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And just having had that charitable feeling, I just said, let's start a record label.
Mm.
I didn't know what I was going to do with it. I had no business background, let alone nonprofit background. And so I sat with it, and then it came through me. I like to think ideas come through me, not to me. And Future Youth Records came through me.
Mm.
I didn't do anything with it for 2 years.
Wow.
Right? Busy recording, busy doing this. Had no idea what this was going to be, but I knew I wanted to be a nonprofit. That's all I knew. I built a crappy website. GoDaddy again. I'm a drummer. That's my training, not a web builder. But lo and behold, one day, it was 2012, 2013 range, I get an email from Mission Girls Services, and they're an agency that works with uninsured girls in the Mission District. And they asked if we could put a songwriting program. And now keep in mind, I did a little piloting with some kids, but it was nothing. Mm. I just felt compelled to do it. So I said, sure. And at the time I was recording with Thea McGee from American Idol, Mo Pleasure from Michael Jackson's band. So I had kind of a network of ringers that I was playing with. And so I'd ask them to come in, whoever was in town and lived locally. And we would come in and mentor these girls every Wednesday from 6 to 8. There's about 4 or 5 of them. Did it for 8 weeks. And then the director says, hey, this is going so well. Can we do another 8 weeks? And by the way, they didn't really have any budget for this. And I was working in the studio that their day rate was like $1,800 a day, but they donated the time.
Wow.
That's the only way we could do it. And at the end of that, I'm thinking nothing of it. It's like, okay, cool. We just did this great thing. And then Susanna, the program director, reached out, invited me over to their center. And I had Matt, Dr. Fink here from Prince and the Revolution. We were working on some stuff together. I said, hey, Matt, you want to go to this agency? He said, sure. And she was a huge Prince fan. I said, well, let's go there. So we go there, and there's about maybe 70 girls there around the building and stuff. And then we go into her office, and she says, I don't know if you knew this, Jason, but one of the girls was suicidal. And songwriting helped her overcome that. Mm. And I just knew something right there. Yeah. Just kind of following. This isn't me, some brilliant guy's got this idea. It's just, I'm just paying attention, right? Mm-hmm. And then she says to me, I got a group of girls that are mad at rap music. They don't like the way the men talked about women, and they want to do a song. I keep my name. These girls had any musical experience. They couldn't sing. They couldn't do anything. Never written a song, anything. So I had Matt, and then A+ from the Hieroglyphics and Social Mischief, and Thea, and we went in for like a week. We wrote a song, and it'd be called "We Are the Women." So it became like an anthem for women's rights. And then we're calling out men for how they're talking to them in rap music.
Wow.
Right. So we do that. Pull together some money to be able to fund it. And then Susanna takes it to the Department of Status on Women in San Francisco to do a music video, and they fund us $10,000. Now we could do a music video. So I go to a buddy of mine who does video and animation. He worked with Snoop Dogg and others, and he did the video. We did it in San Francisco in the Mission District, so it was authentic. And that year, the Super Bowl, which is a big deal here in the States, is coming to town to San Francisco. Yeah. And they had a committee that was given a grant every week for 50 weeks to nonprofits. And they applied for one. There's over 600 applicants. They were one of 50 to win for our project. Wow. And the grant was to take the message to school and talk about women and how they're messaged in media. So now this starts kind of a whole cascading thing for me, where it's like, this is where we got to be. And so I started connecting the dots with social justice, empowering women. So we rooted it there. Mm-hmm. I came up with the idea. I felt like we needed to do something a little bit bigger. There's a backstory, but I don't want to get too deep into that. But basically came up with Think Women, to use songwriting and music as a way to promote critical thinking. Mm. So we would work with youth agencies like the Mission Girls. We started working in LA. We went to England, worked out of Peter Gabriel's studio, working with local nonprofit agencies that focused on young women. writing songs now. Imagine this. You have Peter Gabriel's studio or any studio. You got 2 days, which really means 2 7-hour days. You've got to write a song from scratch. You're dealing mostly with girls at this time that have no musical experience. They don't sing, they don't do anything. And you got to write it, you got to produce it, you got to put it out, and it's got to be great. We did.
Incredible.
That's what we did. And we still do it, but it's a little bit different now. But that became the foundation to this. And then it started becoming clear this is about, kids and social justice and giving them a voice in the world that they're going to inherit. Right?
I mean, it's incredible. There's so much to unpack. Let me just clarify. Did you have the label when you first started working with the Mission Girls? Did you have the label already started?
Yeah, it was in process of getting its 501c3 in the taxes status. It was established. We formed a California corporation. That's the way it works. You got to do that first, and then you apply for the 501c3. So it was pending that. Yeah.
What you're talking about is just this mission, and maybe you can speak to this, but having this very clear mission, for you, it's youth and then social justice and putting those together. And it narrows down from there into different things, environment and women as well. But I talk about this on the show so much and in our communities about the need for having something that your audience can adopt and latch onto. And, just the difference between saying, here's a new song by 4 women, and it's a hip hop song, or whatever the music is, that's the only sales pitch, versus saying, no, here's a song that is about how women are treated in rap music, and it's a response to that. All of a sudden now, any human being is more interested in the second version. I want to hear that. And then, of course, that's how you're getting these grants, how you're getting the attention of the government and everyone. Talk to me a little bit about that, just about how compelling music is when it's attached to a message or a cause.
Well, look, I just say it like it is. I like to be transparent. I had this sort of rosy idea that, I'm going to start a nonprofit. And I'm going to go to foundations. There's going to be all these people wanting to give us money. And I'll be able to get the best in the world and everything. No. In fact, I call it philanthropy. A lot of philanthropy is just there to make fools of people. Anand Giridharadas, if you want to do a deeper dive, he really calls it like it is. And what I mean by that, I'll tell you, I won't say the name of the foundation, but it's a big private family foundation. Huge. And I was connected to them. Got a meeting with the head of who gives for the arts. And long story short, he told me, he says, we're sitting on a golden egg here. I said, yeah. I go, how much about it is, about the money in nonprofit versus for-profit? Well, it's all about the money. It's more about the money in nonprofits. And this is a guy sitting at the head of giving for all of arts at this major multi-billion-dollar family foundation. And I realized, you know what? A lot of those people don't know what they're doing. They've never built anything. They're just there for the power trip and whatever it is. And so I decided, you know what I'm going to do? Not put up with that BS. I'm going to figure out how to fund it myself.
That's amazing.
This isn't something where these foundations and these generous people came along riding on their white horses and said, here's pots of money for you to do what you want. No. So I sold a house. I put about $500,000 of my own money in this thing over the last 10 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's skin in the game.
Yeah.
And I raise some. Our board share kicks in. We get a little bit here and there. It's compare it to like a wishing well. You get a little wishing well, and people want to throw a nickel in there or throw a quarter. And then when you kind of accumulate enough, we can take that and go fund a project. You're not going to get very much work done that way. So I think we finally have a little bit of momentum to get a little more traction with that. But no, this was not philanthropy first in that sense.
Interesting. Oh, that's interesting. I have this, let's talk about the music and the creative side of things, because I have this preconceived idea and this prejudice against charitable labels, because there are labels that are kind of forming as a way to amplify a certain people group or even a certain genre. I just have this prejudice that maybe the music isn't going to be as good, because I subconsciously think that any goal of the mission or the philanthropy will supersede the creative side of things. Is that true in any way? How do you overcome that?
I can only just say, listen to what we put out, and it speaks for itself. What I find is I've gotten over 2,000 submissions from 29 countries. Got one from Russia a couple weeks ago. I get some amazing stuff. Now, some of it needs work. I can give you a little story about one from South Africa if you want to hear about that.
Sure.
So this is a good example. We were doing our Think Earth contest because at the time the pandemic was happening and I had to pivot, couldn't be in the studios anymore. So in meditation, contest. And then we spun it up. Started getting judges like Jared Robinson and all these legends to kind of come in and judge. But anyway, one song was called Mother Earth. And it's just a young lady on her guitar singing this song, kind of Mormon ballad, sort of campfires. Well, it won. Now, this young woman didn't have access to any recording equipment other than she had a guitar in her phone. Okay. Didn't really have any experience in studios. She's in South Africa and we're here in the States. How are we going to do this? But we know it's got to be amazing. And so we ended up producing obviously everything over the internet. I had Kenny Aronoff on drums.
Wow.
Eva Gardner from Pinkspan on bass, Justin Derrico from Pinkspan also, and the voice on guitar, and Fake on keys. And then we arranged to have a studio set for her in South Africa where she can go and record her vocals. And then we produced her over the internet. Sure. And then we sent her, was kind enough to give us microphones that we can give and help some of these kids out. And so we sent her a microphone to kind of help her with future writing and things like that. So yeah, sure. That was a lot of work, Ring Around the Rosie on the internet. But at the end of the day, it was a great song. And she could pull it off. So I don't see any, in the earlier model, sure, you're working with kids that don't have any experience. That's tough, but it still has to be great.
Yeah. Well, that's good. When you talk about submissions and thousands of submissions, I mean, you're so limited, going back to that amazing feeling that you had when you gave up your salary to sponsor one kid. It just must feel overwhelming that you can only do that once. You only have one salary to give up to one kid. So you're getting thousands of submissions. Is that overwhelming? Is it sad knowing that you can only do a certain amount?
It was at first, but now I thought about it a little differently. I thought about, well, hey, there's thousands of kids writing about social justice that weren't doing it before, maybe.
Yeah. Sure.
That's not us putting out a handful of songs. Of course I want to put out more, but the fact that they're even writing about this is putting out an energy in the world. Yeah,
that's fair. Is there, what is the criteria? What is it when somebody submits a song? I mean, you're looking for social justice. I see that in the song. What is the age and what are some of the criteria that you expect?
16 to 24 is the range. We extended it a little bit because of the pandemic. We didn't feel it was fair to punish kids that were around that 21, 22 age during the pandemic. So we extended it a little bit. So 16 to 24, any genre, any language. I just listen to the songs first and then I get opinions from our team. And then we sort of kind of determine, well, one is, are kids writing more about, like, say, a topic like emotional health? That was really big last year and this year. So that tells us, it gives us a signal what we need to do, where we need to drive our resources around that. Okay. So there's that. Then there's also the, how are they to work with? We don't know. These are kids that are coming from different parts of the world, so we don't know. But as long as they're 16 to 24 and it's social justice, we figure everything else out around what they're saying they want to do. We'll never tell them what they're going to do.
Sure. Is there something that you can do for them or resources that you can provide them with if you're getting 2,000 submissions and you're only recording 1 or 2 or 10? Is there ways that you can encourage or help those other 1,990?
Yeah, so we're actually building a thing called FYI 360.
Okay.
We started it as a coaching program. That was a little bit too heavy for us to do with our limited resources, so I'm rolling out into a newsletter. And what we'll be able to do is offer tips, tools, tactics, discount, resources, whatever they need to kind of reach more youth that way.
Oh, that's very cool. Going back to the creativity, I'm curious. Is there, in a way, I was wondering if, how being the charity impacts the creativity. I could see a positive side where if you don't have the same financial pressures or the same commercial pressures that a major label might have, that it might free things up to explore. Well, certainly when it comes to the topics, there might be some topics that you cover that a mainstream artist would be too afraid to cover. So does this kind of freedom of saying we're doing this because of the mission positively impact the creativity?
I thought about that too. I think it kind of cuts both ways a bit.
Mm-hmm.
I think on one hand, you've got, a generation of young artists that are sort of conditioned to want to be Taylor Swift or that. And it's just a lot of that, let's follow the leader kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of end up with like a homogenization of music, and nothing really stands out, with maybe an outlier here and there. On the other hand, it's like, well, no, because this has to be social justice, and it's challenging them to get out of their own preconceived notions. So it's kind of putting them there. But I see it as sort of a blend of some kids, they just can do whatever. You give them a phone book and they can sing it. They can just do anything. We tend to be at this stage of our development, we tend to be around those youth that can do anything. They can do whatever. So I think we've gotten to kind of the point where we're really with the best of the best of the best. And it's not just about a talent thing. It's, will they be out there advocating for what they write? Do they believe the values they profess? And I go, quite far to make sure that they don't take advantage of the opportunity either.
Well, that's an interesting point. I hadn't thought about that. I mean, is there some sort of deep dive and qualifying that you're doing? I mean, you have this ages, this is the song, great. But looking into whether or not this is the type of person that you want to be almost the voice of your organization for a short time?
Well, the thing about, for the part of my background is, while I was working to be a professional drummer, I used to do loss prevention at Costco, undercover security, busted people. So you get a real good sniffer on it, kind of. So I've been, I've got some tricks that I can kind of tell. It doesn't work 100% of the time, but sometimes I get caught up emotionally in this, and I just want to do everything I can, and I can be a little blinded sometimes, but mostly I can sniff them out.
Walk me through the process of them getting your approval. So how does it work then? You're reaching out to them, you're telling them the deal. I mean, I assume in some cases you're getting their parents involved. So can you talk to me from you're approving their demo all the way to releasing their track?
Yeah, so you get the demo, and that's sort of an audition in and of itself. Can they fill out the form correctly? Can they follow direction? Right. So I try to build in filters every step of the way. Okay?
Interesting. Good for you.
So again, this I guess goes back to my old training, but so can they fill out the form correctly? Is it aligned to social justice? So that sort of eliminates, a certain percentage off the bat. And then are they timely? Like, if we have a meeting, do they show up on time? So I kind of will audition them that way. And then those that they filled out the form correctly, we've had a meeting to talk about what we want to do. I just met with a young lady from the UK. She's lovely. It's a song called Walking Home. It'll be about women's empowerment. But anyway, so I kind of use that moment, the 20, 30-minute meeting, see what their goals are with this, what they want to do with it. And then by the time I get there, I know for sure if it's going to work.
Yeah. I totally get what you mean.
Reliable.
Yeah,
it's been pretty reliable.
Yeah, and that's your own discernment. I mean, that's just being in the business and knowing people, and that's a really handy tool to have. And so then what is the deal? Like, what is it that you offer these folks? I hear it's pretty generous.
Yeah, so it's full song production based on whatever the needs of the song are. Some could just be acoustic guitar and just vocal, and they're set up in their bedrooms, and there's not a lot we have to deploy. But there's others like the Lebu song in South Africa, where those are pretty extensive. The one that came out today, Remedy, we had Matt Wallace producing. He did it, pro bono. A lot of times we'll ask people to do it pro bono if they can do it.
That's
but
nice.
we recorded it, but we still had to pay studio time. We did a video, and there's other costs too. So it's it's song by song. What does the song need? What are we going to do? It's really it's dependent on that.
Do you feel like? I mean, what you're talking about here is the kind of the extreme philanthropic side of record labels, but I do feel like a lot of the labels in our community, a lot of independent labels, are moving closer to what you're doing than to what the traditional labels of the 80s and 90s and those issues were. Do you feel a little bit of a more generous approach in the indie music community, like moving more towards what you're doing?
Well, to be honest, because again, it's just I don't follow too much because I'm just maniacally focused on what
Yeah,
I'm just like right
yeah.
there. I'm just zeroed in on that.
Yeah.
And so I don't really take too much time to understand sort of what's happening around me. Um, but I would imagine that would have to be the case, just because I don't see just the economies of scale how that would work if you don't change the model.
Yeah.
You have to. I just hope that people that do it are doing it with the right intention. You
Right.
know?
Right. And so you got the proof would be in some of these session musicians and producers who are doing things pro bono. What's their angle? Is it just that feeling that you got?
Well, I like to think of it as a cross generational partnership.
Mm-hmm.
And we're all working together for the environment, for world peace, for LGBTQ rights, for women's rights and health. So it's really it's we don't find it very difficult at all. Usually, the difficult thing is just schedule, let's say. But
Yeah.
people, a lot of like Matt's invested in this. Every musician I've worked with has been invested in it. We did the collaboration with Julian Lennon. I don't know if you knew that. We
Yes, I
recorded
saw that.
Saltwater.
Yeah.
And everyone in that room donated their time. When you watch that video, Jim Keltner, everybody donated their time.
That's incredible.
Eve
Yeah.
in this.
Yeah.
But more importantly, they get it. And I think what's happening is people are starting to understand. And I touched on this earlier, but youth need to have a say in the world they're going to inherit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And who's asking them?
Yeah.
They need a seat at the global table. Who's offering it?
Yeah.
And
Good
this
point.
is our way of perpetuating that in the world. And you know what'll happen is we maybe won't have some of this crap.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
You know?
Yeah, good for you. I love that. How long are you involved in this? You're doing a single. I know I've read that they get to keep 100% of everything, which I presume means the publishing, the masters.
Okay.
And are you releasing these tracks? Are you helping them release it? And you're just paying them 100% of what comes in?
Yeah. So the way it works is we just ask that we're able to keep it up because it's a show proof of work.
Yes.
And also, what good is it if these songs come down? Another way to think of it is like songs, not signs. Like we're protesting, holding up. What happens to that cardboard? Well, the song will live up forever.
Yeah, good point.
So they can we want 45 days exclusivity, just so that they're not competing with us because we're spending all this money.
Sure.
It goes out, then they can do whatever they want. Like, for example, I got it up the other day from someone wanted to license one of the songs, and I just connected them with the artist.
Wow.
For a film. So just here you go. I mean, we're here to help. We don't take anything.
Yeah.
So as long as they're willing to let us have that 45-day, and then we can keep it up, they can do whatever they want.
I imagine though there's some young people who are going to do really well at managing their career, and you're like a springboard for them to do what they probably were going to do anyway, but you just gave them a little bit of a head start. I could also imagine there's some people who would want you to hold their hand for the next 5 to 10 years and to help them through a full-length record, and wouldn't be able to negotiate a sync deal if it fell in their lap. So what do you do with those people?
I haven't been there yet.
Okay.
Haven't been there yet. That'd be a great place to get to. But again, like it's Future Youth Records, not Future Youth into Adult Records, and you're gonna have to figure it out.
That's good point.
We think of it as if we've given you leverage.
Yeah.
Like this would be like a magical story. Like if we can say there's an artist that comes and she is 18 and we do a song, and then that leads to maybe an EP, and we're connecting her with celebrities and doing high profile stuff. And then she's about 23 years old and she's pretty well known in the world, has a fan base. We helped her do all that. And then she's 24. She's ready to go out in the world, either DIY or she has a lot more leverage to sign with a major or something like that. And the best part of that would be she's built her fan base on social minded music. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like that is that's the avatar for us. And at times, how many artists can we do that with? You're going to see a real change in tide of what comes out and what music, the role music is happening in our lives.
Well, I think this next question, I think you've answered a couple times throughout this interview, but I'm curious what success looks like for you, because I mean it's different for you, and then it would be for a major label certainly, and for even other more profit-driven record labels. And I know to hear, when you, just to reference back to what you said a couple minutes ago about how these people who are having a say in the world may actually create a different world than we're living in now in the future. What is that at the end of the campaign or at the end of the year, you say that was successful? What does that look like?
Well, it's reception. It's what kind of traction did it get? What was it covered? Did it get media coverage? Because ultimately, it does us no good to put out this music and 50 people listen to it. It just does no good.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and so it's really about did it get attention? We're in an attention economy, right? So,
Sure.
we're doing this podcast and to get attention, not to sit here and just twiddle our thumbs and say, "Hey, nice to meet you, buddy." So
yeah.
So it's about attention at the end of the day. Did it get attention? We believe that the more attention it gets, the more hearts and minds it will change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
great answer. My last question is, and I appreciate the segue, is folks who are listening, how can maybe they're compelled to get involved or to donate, or what do you look for when it comes to brands that partner with what you do, or individuals who just want to donate? What does that look like?
Yeah, so it's go to futureyouthrecords.org. Everything's there. My email is jwall@futureyouthrecords.org. And so I kind of work with Robin Flans. So I don't know if you know her. She's a legendary music journalist. She's on our team.
Great.
So she heads our collaborations and outreach, and that's Robin at futureyouthrecords.org. And so she and I will work where we're putting together something now with another organization, a collab. So that's the best way to do is go to the website and email.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. And I love what you've built. And I think it's really special. And I really do hope, because there's really no competition in this space, but I really do hope more people kind of pursue this path. Was it difficult to start a charity as a record label? Is it just difficult in general to start a charity, whether or not you're raising money for XYZ versus making records?
Yeah, I think it's all difficult. I mean, unless you have some kind of unfair advantage, going for you. But I just think no matter anything, I'm sure this podcast is difficult. I'm sure you have to look at things and, strategy and how do you grow it and things and keep it interesting and meaningful for your audience. It's all difficult. It's just, the question is like, how are you going about it? Are you motivated by your challenges, or are you complaining about your challenges? And I think that is, because we're going to have them. And I think that if you can keep a healthy, positive mindset, you'll figure it out. Everything is figureoutable. That's a saying I heard in yoga once. It's all figureoutable. You just got to, sometimes, and the other thing too is what I've learned is when you think you need to lean in more, sometimes you need to step away. You need to pull back.
Interesting. Do you have an example?
Yeah. So with this pandemic, right when we had the pandemic, I thought, my mind just couldn't get out of the model that we had in terms of city. How are we going to get the kids into the studio? How are we going to do this? I was like, whoa. Pull back. So I pulled back. Couldn't do anything anyway because we're in the middle. We started a pandemic. Oh, let me meditate. That's what I do. I journal and meditate.
Good.
And what came through me is contest. And that was a game changer for us. I wouldn't figure that out. But if I got to figure this out, stress.
Yeah.
No. Do the opposite sometimes.
Yeah.
Do the opposite. And then you're become aware of things that you weren't aware of before.
The title of this episode is Everything is Figureoutable. I love it so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for doing this, and congrats on everything.
Thank you, brother. And I'm always here for you, and we'll spread the word.